Welcome to this Setup 1% podcast, where we believe small daily improvements lead to massive long-term success. I'm your host, just a voice behind the mic who prefers to remain mysteriously anonymous. Let's just say I'm that friend who has made enough mistakes to fill a self-help book series. Today, we're taking a special journey, not through space, but through time. Have you ever wished you could go back and talk to your younger self? Hand them the precious advice you had to pay for with time, effort, and sometimes tears? That's exactly our topic today. From the horizon of 33, what I want to tell 23-year-old you. I vividly remember how it felt being 23. That feeling of beginning, of infinite possibilities, but also riddled with doubts and anxieties. Back then, we think we know so much, but a decade later, looking back, we realize we didn't know what we didn't know. I was so confident at 23 that I once tried to explain marketing to my boss who had 20 years of experience. Let's just say it didn't go as planned, but my embarrassment is your education today. I'll share the 10 most important things I wish I knew at 23. Not to wallow in regret, but to gift these lessons to those of you in your early 20s, just starting your journey. Let's begin this time-traveling conversation. Part 1. The power of focus. Sorry folks, I need to turn off these notifications. And that's exactly the first issue I want to address. In a world constantly trying to steal your attention, focus has become a rare superpower. At 23, I prided myself on my multitasking abilities. Working while checking emails while scrolling social media. I thought I was efficiently doing multiple things at once. In reality, I was just fragmenting my focus into worthless pieces. There's one day I can't forget. I was preparing for an important presentation due the next day. As usual, I was working while constantly checking my phone. The result? By 2 a.m., I was still not finished, feeling exhausted with mediocre work. Desperate, I decided to try a different approach. I turned off all notifications, put my phone in another room, and focused entirely on the task for 90 minutes. The miracle happened. I accomplished more in those 90 minutes than in the previous 5 hours combined.
It was like discovering I had superpowers all along, but had been wearing kryptonite underwear voluntarily.
That's when I realized, focus is a superpower in today's age. Research from Stanford University shows that each time we're interrupted, we lose about 23 minutes to get back into a state of complete focus. Imagine you're working and checking your phone every 10 minutes. You'll never really reach a state of deep work. Practical advice: start with 25-minute deep work sessions with absolutely no interruptions. Turn off all notifications. Keep your phone out of reach. Then take a 5-minute break and continue. Gradually increase to 50 minutes, then 90 minutes. You'll be amazed at your productivity. Remember, focus isn't a fixed trait. It's a muscle that can be trained. And if I could go back to being 23, I would start training that muscle much earlier. Part 2. Depth beats breadth. The second point is closely related to the first one. At 23, I was caught in the mindset, I need to know a little about everything. I studied all sorts of things, a bit of programming, a bit of marketing, a bit of design, a bit of writing. I had a friend the same age, let's call him Mike. While I was trying to learn everything, Mike chose a different path. He decided to focus on a single skill, UI/UX design. I remember secretly laughing, even feeling a bit sorry for this limitation of Mike's. But what happened after 5 years? I became a jack of all trades, master of none, knowing a little about many things but not good enough at anything to create real differential value. And Mike? He became one of the most sought-after UI/UX experts in the industry, with a salary 3 times mine and the freedom to choose the projects he wanted to work on.
Meanwhile, I was still telling everyone at parties that I was versatile. Yeah, I was versatile like a Swiss Army knife when the job required a power drill.
That's when I realized a simple but profound truth. Being great at one high-value skill is much better than knowing a little about many things. Cal Newport, author of So Good They Can't Ignore You, calls this career capital, a collection of rare, valuable, and hard-to-replace skills. The more capital you accumulate in a specific field, the more valuable you become. This doesn't mean you shouldn't learn broadly. But distinguish between learning for general knowledge and learning for mastery. You can study many fields for foundational knowledge, but choose one field to dive deep and become an expert. Practical advice. Ask yourself, which skill, if I developed it to an extraordinary level, would create the most value? Then, dedicate at least 80% of your professional development time to that skill. For me, it was copywriting, a skill that never goes out of style and can be applied in any industry. Part 3. Passion follows skill. We often hear the phrase, follow your passion and success will come. But after 10 years in my career, I've realized that this principle often works in reverse. At 23, like many young people, I was constantly searching for my true passion. I jumped from job to job, from industry to industry, always feeling something was missing. I haven't found my passion yet, I told myself. Then one day, I read a quote from Steve Jobs. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. That quote changed how I viewed my career. I decided to stop searching for passion and start focusing on becoming good at marketing. Not because I was passionate about it, but because I saw it as a place where I could create value. Something magical happened. The better I got at marketing, the more I enjoyed the work. The more value I created, the more recognition and respect I received. And from that mastery and recognition, passion gradually formed.
It's like dating versus marriage. Passion is the exciting first date, but skill is the committed relationship that grows deeper over time. I was spending all my time swiping left and right on career Tinder when I should have been putting a ring on one skill.
Psychology research calls this the mastery principle. When you become good at something, your brain releases dopamine when you perform it, creating feelings of interest and satisfaction. Practical advice. Instead of asking the vague question, what is my passion? Ask, what can I become good at? Where can I create value? Then, commit to developing that skill to an extraordinary level. Passion will follow mastery. Remember, a solid career doesn't come from passion, but from the value you create. Do the work well first, and passion will follow. Part 4. Building an environment for creativity. The fourth point I want to emphasize relates to your work environment. Not the physical office, but the mental environment you create for yourself. I used to pride myself on my ability to work in chaotic environments. TV on, phone ringing constantly, emails pinging continuously, and I still got work done. Or at least I thought so. During a vacation, I happened to read Deep Work by Cal Newport. The author argued that high-quality creative work requires uninterrupted focus. I decided to experiment. I created what I called sacred hours, 2 hours each day when I turned off all social media, email, phone, and worked in a quiet space. The results shocked me. Work quality skyrocketed, creative ideas flooded in, and I completed twice as much work in half the time.
It was like I'd been trying to write a symphony in the middle of a rock concert and suddenly discovered the joy of a quiet studio. No wonder my previous masterpieces sounded like cats walking on keyboards.
Research from the University of California shows that each interruption costs your brain up to 23 minutes to return to a state of complete focus. With an average of 180 phone checks per day, according to Deloitte research, it's no wonder we rarely reach a state of true creativity. Practical advice: create sacred time for creative work. Start with 30 uninterrupted minutes each day, then gradually increase. Turn off all notifications. Put your phone in another room. Use blocking apps like Freedom or Cold Turkey to lock distracting websites. And remember, you can't do creative work if you're constantly distracted. That's why I'm repeating this point, even though I mentioned it in the beginning, because it's that important. Part 5. Patience with results. The fifth point I want to share is about the power of patience, an increasingly rare virtue in the age of instant gratification. At 25, I started a marketing blog. After 3 months of consistent posting, the readership was still pathetically small. I got discouraged and quit. 2 years later, I reconnected with someone who had started a blog around the same time as me. He had persisted in writing, and now his blog had hundreds of thousands of followers, becoming the foundation for a lucrative consulting business. I asked him what his secret was. The answer was surprisingly simple. I didn't quit. Most people quit too soon.
I was like that person who plants a seed, digs it up every day to check if it's growing, then wonders why nothing is happening. Meanwhile, my friend just kept watering his seed, trusting in the process.
In the age of TikTok, where everything happens in 15 seconds, we've forgotten a fundamental truth. Everything meaningful takes time. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, calls this the valley of disappointment, the gap between when you start something and when you see meaningful results. In this valley, most people quit, but that's also where the division between those who succeed and those who don't occurs. Science supports this too. Anders Ericsson's 10,000-hour rule shows that mastery in any field requires a long practice time. There are no shortcuts. Practical advice: commit to the 2-year rule for any important project. Don't judge results for at least the first 6 months. Instead, focus on building systems and processes for consistent work. Set small milestones to track progress. Remember, if you want immediate results, you'll always chase surface-level things. Part 6. Effectiveness versus busyness. The final point I want to share is the difference between being busy and being effective, a lesson I had to pay dearly to understand. In my 20s, I took pride in my packed schedule. I often worked from 7 a.m. to midnight, always saying "so busy" when someone asked how I was doing. I remember an important project where I worked 14 hours a day for 2 weeks. The result was an average product and a body so exhausted I had to take a week off to recover. In contrast, I had a colleague who rarely worked more than 7 hours a day, yet consistently produced excellent results. Curious, I asked for her secret. "I don't try to do everything," she replied. "I identify the 20% of work that produces 80% of the value and focus all my energy there."
I was the hamster running furiously on the wheel, thinking I was getting somewhere because I was exhausted. She was the one who simply opened the cage door and walked out.
That's when I was introduced to the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. It completely changed how I work. Instead of trying to do more, I started asking, what truly matters? Instead of equating hours worked with productivity, I focused on output quality. Practical advice: every morning, list everything you need to do. Then ask yourself, if I could only do one thing today, which would create the most value? That's what you should do first when your energy and focus are highest. Remember, don't confuse busyness with effectiveness. Do less, but do it better. Results come from the quality of your work, not the hours you put in. Conclusion. We've gone through the 6 most important things I would tell my 23-year-old self. To summarize: 1. Focus is a superpower in an age with too many things demanding our attention. 2. Being great at one high-value skill is better than knowing a little about many things. 3. A solid career doesn't come from passion, but from the value you create. 4. You can't do creative work if you're constantly distracted. 5. Everything meaningful takes time. 6. Don't confuse busyness with effectiveness. These things might sound simple, but implementing them requires discipline and persistence, 2 qualities increasingly rare in the age of instant gratification. I believe that if you can master and apply these principles at 23, you'll save yourself a lot of time, energy, and frustration that I went through to learn them. Think of me as the time traveler who came back just to save you from the embarrassment of explaining marketing to your boss with 20 years of experience. You're welcome. And if you're past 23, it's still not too late. As the famous saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Thank you for listening. This is your anonymous but hopefully helpful host from Setup 1% podcast. See you in the next episode.